All right, let's get started. Thank you all for joining or watching on our recording. Welcome to our first InterSystems programming contest for 2024. I'll dive into it with a little description, and I'll mention a couple of helpful tools, and then I'm going to pass it off to Patrick Jamieson of InterSystems to explain a little more about FHIR. This contest the topic is going to be FHIR and digital health interoperability. The contest runs from January 15th through February 5th. You'll notice that this is January 16th, and that is we pushed off the announcement one day because of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in the United States on January 15th. The prize pool is an awesome $14,000. I'll describe that a little more in just 1 minute. The topic again is developing any interoperability FHIR or healthcare interoperability solution. And you're going to be using either InterSystems IRIS for Health, InterSystems Health Connect Cloud, or InterSystems FHIR Server. The general requirements, as always, for our programming contests are that the application or library must be fully functional. It should not be a direct import or interface for an existing library. And it should not be a copy-paste of an existing application. You can either build a brand new application and store it on our Open Exchange app gallery, or you can leverage an existing application, but we want significant improvement for it to be entered new into this contest. The application should work with either IRIS or IRIS for Health community editions, and both are available on our evaluation site. The applications must be open source and published on GitHub. There must be a README in English, and you can use either a text description and or a video demo as well. And a single developer can only do 3 submissions. You can also team up, and I'll say more about that in just a minute. We are going to have 2 sets of prizes. We're going to have expert judges, and here is the prize breakdown from 1st through 5th, and then additional awards for 6th through 10th. And then community winners, so the developer community of InterSystems will vote, and there'll be prizes as laid out here for community winners as well. Who can participate? Any InterSystems developer community member, not InterSystems employees, but InterSystems contractors are allowed to participate, and you can create an account here. As I mentioned, you can team up in teams, and we encourage that. We ask that the teams be limited to 2 to 5 developers. And please, if you are on a team, please do highlight all of the team members in the README of the application. The important deadlines are the contest kickoff, basically today. The deadline to submit is January 28th, and then there is our typical voting period. Developers can update their applications during this voting period, but we need to have the applications submitted by the 28th to be considered. Then on this page, which you'll find on our developer community, this announcement page, there's a whole set of resources available to you, and we do recommend that you check them out. There's documentation. There's this tool ClinFire, which I'll mention in just a second. There's sample applications and even tutorials and online courses. I will mention 2 briefly. This is ClinFire. It is a tool available on the web that InterSystems sponsors, as you can see here on the right. Excuse me just one second. You can see here on the right, it's a tool, it's an educational tool for developers that teaches about FHIR. There's a default data server up here, which you'll see is an InterSystems FHIR server. And you can do a bunch of different things with this, experiment with FHIR and learn about FHIR, including creating patients, building graphs, and so forth. Very interesting tool. I recommend checking it out. And then one more tool that I'll point out in online courses, this interactive digital health interoperability is a tutorial that we launched in the end of 2023. You can see it here. It is an interactive tutorial. It's built on the Instruct platform. It is very cool and actually teaches you specifically about digital health interoperability on InterSystems IRIS for health. So please check that out as well in your learning journey as you're participating in the contest. And with that, I am going to ask Patrick Jamieson to speak a little about FHIR and Smart on FHIR applications.
Thanks, Dean. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? I hope. Is it visible?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for that nice introduction, Dean. I'm going to just give a few words about FHIR and digital health interoperability. My name is Patrick Jamieson. I'm the product manager for our core FHIR stack. And I've been with InterSystems about 5 years, working specifically mainly with FHIR. What I have in mind this morning or this evening, depending on where you are, is a brief agenda to talk a little bit about what's going on with trends in FHIR. What are some of the new features that we introduced in our FHIR stack in 2023? I'll talk a little bit about sample use cases, and then I'm going to pivot a little bit to Smart on FHIR because this is really gaining a lot in momentum for building innovative applications. I'm going to give a very brief FHIR demo and then talk about the year 2024. What's in store for FHIR and for InterSystems FHIR. So let's talk a little bit about trends in FHIR. Well, some of the big things that happened over the last year was the release of FHIR R5. This is the newest version of the FHIR standard, including a lot of enhancements in functionality, improved documentation, and addressing known issues from previous versions. It's still very early in the adoption cycle, but FHIR continues to progress as a standard. There's also been continued expansion of APIs and the adoption of FHIR APIs across health systems. And this is leading to better data exchange and integration with electronic health records and other health IT systems. We're seeing greater emphasis on patient access. This is in part due to regulations, but other initiatives that are going across the globe. And this is giving patients a better understanding of their healthcare data based largely on FHIR. We've seen different applications addressing COVID. We're seeing integration with genomic data. So we're going to integrate new sources of data that will use both clinical and genomic data to help with developing personalized medicine. Other advances in interoperability. Well, we're seeing that we're finding healthcare systems are integrating device data, and they'll continue to do this as time goes on. We're also seeing that companies, including major tech companies and industry leaders, like, for example, payers, providers, are working more closely together based on the FHIR standard to exchange data. And so one of the things I think you're going to see, at least in the United States, is a better payers and providers working to do prior authorization in a better, easier way. And then we're seeing, obviously, things like FHIR-based research frameworks emerging. There have been a number of enhancements to Smart on FHIR. This really enables building very sophisticated healthcare apps across different healthcare systems. And FHIR is really not US-centric. I deal with our customers and prospects around the world looking to adopt FHIR to help with healthcare clinical data exchange. So what did InterSystems do specifically in 2023 with regard to FHIR? Well, we introduced a number of things that I think are very helpful for developers. First, we concentrated a lot on improving our Smart on FHIR support. We introduced at the end of the year a FHIR object model that I'll briefly discuss. We rolled into the core stack FHIR profile validation. So now you could validate your profiles. And we introduced the base support for FHIR R5. So let's talk, I think I may have passed it here. Let's talk about the FHIR object model a little bit. And why did we create this? Well, our FHIR developers that work specifically with FHIR facades and back-end systems know that InterSystems FHIR server stores and manipulates FHIR data as dynamic objects. And unfortunately, programmers often don't know the structure of each of the 145 FHIR resources that they need to work with. Not naturally, they could look this up on the HL7 website, but it makes it cumbersome to program with FHIR without having a detailed template of these different resources and classes. Programmers also wanted to have help from us in doing things like syntax highlighting and code completion. So if we had a first-class object model for these tasks, we would have an ability not only to create FHIR transformations easier, but we'd make it easier for developers to customize their FHIR server. And that's what we did. We built a FHIR object model for version R4. R5 will be coming. There's 139 classes in the object model. You could then effectively use dim statements to reserve memory for any given FHIR object in R4, such as codable concept, claims, patients, etc. And with that, you get syntax completion if you're using Visual Studio Code. So as you type along, it will show you the valid choices. We also introduced this notion of an abstract set. This that unites our FHIR objects with dynamic abstract objects, which basically you could interchange between the two. And here are some of the set operations that you could perform. You could go to dynamic abstract objects or from dynamic abstract objects to FHIR objects. We also introduced FHIR profile validation. So let me just back up a little bit and help you understand, well, what is a FHIR profile? Because these are very important. These allow healthcare organizations to tailor the FHIR standard to their specific requirements, because the FHIR standard is fairly generic. In any specific use case, it's constrained by things like which elements in FHIR should be used for a given resource types, what value sets should be bound to those elements, and what are the cardinality of the different elements in the FHIR. So usually we have national governments or leading standards bodies like HL7 come up with different profiles, but you could create your own custom profile. But these constrain FHIR so that it can be used properly in any given specific use case. So what FHIR profile validation does, and what we introduced, is the ability to validate any FHIR resource that you want to post against either custom or standard profiles. Generally, they would be standard profiles that you would use with the FHIR server. And this ensures that the data adheres to the specific constraints and rules of that profile. What you also get is a detailed validation message highlighting any discrepancy between FHIR resources and the associated profiles. So this makes it very clear what are the issues that you need to address in posting resources that you want to make conformant with the FHIR standard. This validate operation can be called either by using a parameters resource or by posting the resource to be validated directly against a specific URL where you mention the profile. So this, again, will work with both standard profiles and custom profiles. So here would be an example request. Here you're seeing that you're taking a medication request and you want to validate it, and you are basically going to post the resource in the body that specifies the parameter and the resource itself. Another way you could do it is you're posting a bundle and you're validating it against different having various resource types. And here are some, just a partial listing of the error messages you get. You're missing required elements, you have cardinality violations, invalid extensions, value set validation failure. You're going to get a lot of good support for basically using a profile. We also introduced base support for FHIR R5. And so there's a lot of changes that you can read about in the HL7 website. This includes substantial revisions to the medication definition resource, the addition of dozens of new resources that define structures. So we have now 157 resource types in R5. And then new operations designed for efficiently managing resources such as groups and lists. We have yet to implement that because it's not part of our base support, but we will be doing that in the coming year. I want to just caution people, R5 is being experimented and used now around the globe. In the United States, though, there's no push to use it because there are no federal regulations that demand it. I think this will change in time. But if you're thinking about starting a new project, while R5 may be a good choice, just keep in mind that a lot of people are going to be on R4 for a while. So, as you know, we continue to look at our FHIR core and what will make it easier and better for you. What makes it special? Well, InterSystems in general has a lot of good features for our FHIR stack, such as our ability to scale and be very highly performant because we use the enterprise cache protocol. We're platform agnostic, and that is a great advantage to many developers who are using a whole variety of operating systems on-prem or in the cloud. Our FHIR server can be mirrored, so we could have failover recovery, making it highly reliable. We have API management built into the product, so you can basically throttle requests and secure them very well. And we have what's called a multi-model FHIR store. What this means is that we could do FHIR analytics without moving your data. And we have a tool for this, the FHIR SQL Builder, that I'll just show you very briefly in a second. So our competitors store FHIR data in a variety of ways. Normally, what they do is they have to use different data stores for different kinds of use cases. So for analytics, for example, they might store it by extracting data out of the FHIR repository and storing it in an analytics repository. Go back here a second. Oops. It's not letting me go back. What I wanted to show you is that we can do this without having to use extraction. And here I'm going to show you the FHIR SQL Builder quickly. I'm just doing a transformation of what's in the FHIR repository. And I'm selecting different elements that I want to have in my analytics view, which could be SQL table projections. So I'm selecting things in the repository. I could get a histogram of what's in that repository, and I could add this to a projection of what is going to be for my analytics use cases of using FHIR. So I could change things. For example, I can change family name to last name, and I could specify whether I want the official or maiden name, all to make it easy, essentially, to create a projection. Here I'm including things like the patient's birthplace address. And again, with very long default names, I could transform that and make it a lot simpler to understand using the FHIR SQL Builder, which is you could play with in the IRIS Community Edition. I could also drill down to lower levels, for example, observation codes. I could just call that the code. And the display, I could just call that display. All of this transformation then allows me then to do special types of queries. And I'll show you that in just a second here. I'm going to create a projection, call it demo, and I'm going to use the transform one. And I'm going to put it in a package called SQL1. When I launch that projection, I can now see these tables that have been flattened out, and I can easily do analytics on them. I could execute queries. So you could see, I could show you the table of those patients that were in the FHIR repository. I could do things like group and aggregate requests. Let me turn a little bit now to FHIR bulk export, because this is getting also very hot. We could basically export data from a variety of FHIR servers and put that into a form called ND.JSON that you could import into a FHIR server. And that's being used by many of our customers. Some of them as big as eHealth Exchange are using this to aggregate data from multiple sources. So let's talk a little bit about some of the sample use cases that you can use FHIR for. Well, there are so many different things that you could use FHIR for. For example, you could build integrated patient care portals from various sources, like EHRs, wearables, and other monitoring devices, to give you a really good comprehensive view of the patient's health. And this benefits in terms of more accurate diagnosis, personalized treatment plans. You could implement remote patient monitoring and things like facilitating the collection and exchange of data. You could do telehealth and virtual consultations. You could help patients have better accessibility to their own health records through FHIR-enabled apps or portals. And this could really be helpful in, for example, managing chronic disease so that, you could give patients insights into the treatments, their medication plans, and help with patient engagement. Clinical decision support is also something that FHIR can power. And we're using that in HealthShare today through this tool called the Healthcare Action Engine. I don't have time to show it to you, but I think it's a very promising approach to improving clinical decision support in healthcare. We could use FHIR for research and data analysis by aggregation and anonymization of healthcare data, and using healthcare IoT integration to basically integrate data from things like an Apple Watch or an insulin pump. Medication management, very important, can streamline this by allow for better tracking of prescriptions, monitoring of medication adherence, and identification of potential drug interactions. And the list goes on. I don't have time to really talk about all of the different use cases because there's so many of them. So I want to pivot a little bit to Smart on FHIR because this is really becoming the mechanism in which independent healthcare developers are building essentially very innovative applications. So why are developers excited about this? Well, for some of the same reasons that I've mentioned about FHIR healthcare applications. You could improve interoperability by using FHIR built with Smart on FHIR, which is a stack of web technologies that make it easier for healthcare systems to work together. Smart on FHIR is modular and flexible, so you can create interoperable applications. You have increased accessibility to the data through the FHIR standard, including accessibility to EHRs where the data may be stored. Most of the EHR vendors have implemented some type of FHIR access that can be obtained through Smart on FHIR when you have the appropriate access tokens that are part of the Smart on FHIR standard. Smart on FHIR supports modern web standards such as RESTful APIs, OAuth 2 for security, and JSON mainly, or XML for data format. A big part of Smart on FHIR is the enhanced security and privacy. This really allows vendors to protect sensitive health information by making sure that you do authentication and authorization in a highly secure way. So you're able to build personal applications, personalized medical applications by getting the patient's permission and using Smart on FHIR to obtain information from the patient's medical record. There's a real growing community and ecosystem for Smart on FHIR of developers and healthcare professionals that are leading the charge to build these new innovative apps. And regulatory support is also improving to increase basically the use of Smart on FHIR. So some of the technologies involved here, and SMART stands for substitutable medical applications, reusable technology. This actually predated FHIR itself, which was started in 2014. But when FHIR came along, it became the data access layer for SMART, hence the term Smart on FHIR. A key thing to this, though, is the ability to identify and do access management through OpenID Connect and OAuth 2. So here's kind of a workflow diagram of this, where you see basically you have a application that is requesting authorization, and it will retrieve basically tokens to get from tokens that will then be processed by the resource server that you're trying to connect to. In our case, the InterSystems FHIR server. If you have the proper access token that only can be obtained by the from the authorization server, then you could get access to these resources and create your application. So let's just see a little bit of a Smart on FHIR demo. This was something I made a while back, and let's just take a little bit of a look at it here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use and get a OAuth token, and we're going to basically log in here, and you'll see, well, I'll type in my password, and hopefully we'll get this token. We'll see. Oh, I have to authorize the app, so I'm going to accept it here. Once I've accepted it, I see that I get an ID token back because you could see my username and email. That is coming as an ID token. And now I can access a portal application that I built. I have 5 patients in this portal. I'm going to just click on one. And you could see on the the left-hand side, you see a flattened version of the observations. On the right-hand side, you're seeing basically the raw FHIR data. And if we take a look at this, you can see that underneath the hood, we have these requests. These requests are basically observation requests, but notice to get that request, I have to supply a token. And that token is a bearer token, this authorization token. You can see this here. If we copy that token, we could go and we could paste it into a viewer. And let's go to JWT.io. And we could decode that token. Let's go down a little bit, and I'll paste that token in. And you'll see that that token shows the issuer, which is the authorization site, and it shows the scopes, the FHIR scopes, and where I'm making the request. In this case, our FHIR server is living at this HTTP endpoint. So with that proper authorization token, I could go and get that FHIR data. Now, there's a number of different applications we could build with this. This is just one. I'm going to show, let's repeat that again. So let me kind of end off, because I know that was a very quick demo, and there was some other things I wanted to show you, but I had a few technical problems this morning. I want to talk briefly about the road ahead, which is a very exciting road for 2024. So what objectives do we have for 2024 with FHIR? Well, one of the things we want to do is demonstrate FHIR at scale, or FHIR benchmarks. We've been working on this for quite some time, and we've made tremendous progress at defining essentially a suite of benchmarks that I think will demonstrate in hardcore numbers the scalability of our FHIR server. We are also working to improve the integration with OAuth 2 through smart FHIR scopes that we should be releasing in the next month or so. We're also planning to improve the user experience in especially the areas of FHIR server management. And we're working hard on improving deployment in the making it easy, for example, to develop a continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline in the cloud. So here's just an example of some of the benchmark statistics. This is definitely not the values we're getting on a server system, These were just running on my Mac. And you could see we have great performance just on a local system, but we'll be talking much more about FHIR benchmarking around Global Summit. I hope to see you there, where we'll talk about different server systems we've done our benchmark test. We're planning also to improve the FHIR UI for the administration of FHIR servers. So you're going to see some changes in 2024 that'll make it easier to deploy FHIR servers, load FHIR data sets within a GUI, get help with dashboard monitoring to improve monitoring and metrics, and improved support for loading implementation guides and packages. Here's just a dummy screen. I know it doesn't look like it's very clear, but it would show how you could manage multiple FHIR servers and see at a glance different metrics. And also the resource counts for any given FHIR server will make it easy to understand what is in the FHIR server exactly. Finally, we're hoping to integrate at some point the healthcare action engine. As I mentioned to you, this is a very promising way of doing clinical decision support, where you could build either standalone apps or apps through the EMR that can give advice to either the patient or the clinician based on things like orders, admissions, etc. So that's probably a very quick tour of our FHIR core stack and what we've done and what we're planning to do. I just want to say thank you to Dean and for having me this morning, and I just wish you the best in your building your FHIR applications. So good luck, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Patrick. That was a great and informative session. Many topics worth a rewatch on the recording, so you can really take in all of the different topics that Patrick was covering. Are there any questions from the live viewers on the kickoff?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Sure.
Sorry, I missed the beginning. Is this hosted on cloud or?
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, the contest is for building with IRIS community. We do have a cloud service, a FHIR cloud service that you can use. I believe it's free for 30 days. But generally, I think most developers will be building these just on their laptops or their local systems. So you can use a FHIR server that we have in the cloud that you could get through AWS, but I think most contestants will probably use the on-prem server.
And what is the tech stack you've used?
The tech stack? Well, for our FHIR server, we build it on IRIS for Health. And basically, you can use any of a number of technologies to build applications that access the FHIR server through HTTP. I mean, for my demo application, I used Angular, but you could use any number of tools like React or Vue or anything you like, basically, that can access HTTP, because that's all you need to access the FHIR server.
Okay.
Any other
questions?
right. Thank you so much for joining or watching the recording. You definitely reach out in the developer community of InterSystems if you have any questions. And again, here are the important deadlines, January 15th through February 5th. But we do need applications submitted by January 28th for participation. Thank you all very much for joining, and we can't wait to see what you build. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you again soon.